So tonight we are gonna do another stamp. It's gonna be more aggressive, like this rock stamp. It's a little different than the barnwood stamp that's a lot thinner. This one here that we did the other day. This one's pretty thin. If you look at the side view of the bondo here, it doesn't take a whole lot of bondo. This one is quite a bit thicker. It does get pretty thin in some spots. So if you don't load up your stamp with bondo prior to trying to stamp it, you're gonna have a lot of issues with it. We're gonna stamp this one with that same aggressive rock stamp. On your stamp, I'll show you how I mark it, but you can pick out what area of the stamp you want to use, more aggressive, less aggressive, detail on it, and then run it down the center of your pedestal. Like I say in the first video, I like to use bondo because it's a lot faster. I know I can buy a gallon of bondo here at O'Reilly's Auto Parts store. It's 27 bucks for a gallon, which is 16 cups, which you can get about 15, 16 of those pedestals, depending on which stamps you use, and if it's a wall pedestal or floor pedestal. Same thing. Cool. I like to do this one separate because it gives you a better adhesion, I think, if you can get that all worked down into those holes. Kind of like that. And then on your stamp, I just lay it up there prior to mark it with a Sharpie. This stamp is gonna actually be here. I like this detail down here. So I'm gonna stamp this area. So your low spots are gonna be your thickest bondo. Your high spots are gonna be your thinnest. So you're gonna try to coat that nice and even. Prior to sticking it on the mannequin, you're gonna wanna push that bondo down into those low spots. Keep all the air bubbles and stuff out of there, about like that. I sprayed it with some Windex. It's pretty tough to smear around after you spray it, but you spray a light mist of Windex on there and then smear that bondo on there. That Windex will act as a release. It's alcohol based, not water based. Kind of get it situated up there pretty close to where you have it marked. Make sure it's all touching. Just gotta wait for the bondo to kick. Once it kicks, peel it off and you'll have your pattern on there. Lightly press on it and make sure that you're touching all the way around. Like there's some soft spots here, which is your lowest point, because your stamp is super thin right here. So if you push too hard on that, you'll push all that detail out of there. So you can see all your edge of your stamp is touching up in there. Be the same on this back side. It's still pretty wet. This is the boring part. You just gotta wait for it to kick. You can mix that bondo hotter because it doesn't get the oxygen it needs to help cure that stuff. So it does take it a little bit longer to cure than if you were just mixing it and it was out in the open. But you can kind of peel it back a little bit and see what the bondo's doing. As long as it's not peeling off the mannequin, you're in good shape. Like right now, it's pretty good. This outside edge, you can see it's still kind of gel. It's close. You want to be able to get this off and be able to cut your edge and clean that bondo up so that you're able to put that groove in there to tuck your hide in. See, but that Windex just makes, it's like just a release. It just pops right off. So on your stamps, just make sure you clean these up. They'll last forever if you just hit them with a wire brush. All that bondo will just pop right off there. Just clean that stamp up, put it back in your cabinet, make sure it's nice and flat, and you'll never have any issues with these stamps. They'll last forever. I don't know how many stamps you'll get out of them, but you'll get a lot of them. It's just an automotive grade primer, spray can. Hit it right there, let that dry. Okay, now that that's light gray primer, we use this dark gray. It's a dark flat gray auto primer. Like I say, I use lacquer for everything because it's quick, but we'll do small sections. Just kind of hit that. Throw a little lacquer on my brush. Kind of wipe that off these high spots. And if you get some bad areas, you can always go back, just hit it with your light, go back over it and do the same thing. Once you get it where you like it, dry brush it with some acrylics. You can get as detailed as you want at this point. Add some moss in there. You can add all kinds of different details in there. You can drill back through here and put some grasses and brush, all that. Just all depends on how detailed you want to get. That's how I go about these more aggressive stamps. You can see how thick this bondo is right here, but it's a good 1/4 inch, a little over 1/4 of an inch. And then on this back side, about 1/8 of an inch in some of these spots. You can do this after the hide's on if you want. It's a little more complicated. You need to tape all this and paper everything off and get your hair to lay back, and then you can stamp them after it's mounted. But this is much easier. You can cut your slot in here now and tuck your hide in and do all that stuff. But that's the more aggressive stamp. We have a barnwood that's aggressive, that you would do the same process, and we also have a tree bark that's coming up. It's this one. It's a little more aggressive. You'll have to do the same thing. This was done out of thin set, so you can put the thin set on here pretty thick, skin over, dry on top, and then you can spray your stamp and stamp that thing. With the thin set, it's a little easier, but the bondo is a lot faster. So it's 25 minutes with the thin set just before you can even attempt to stamp it. But buy the stamps and use them, and they're always different. This is the same stamp. Well, it's kind of close, but it's different. They'll be different every time, and the stamps will last forever. So